So DJI is entering the racing drone market. We're going to talk about all the details in the video coming up. So let's skip the intro and get right into it. So the details of DJI first entering the racing drone market was first reported by Drone DJ. And according to an FCC filing, we can see a few of the components that they've already filed for. So those components include an air unit, which is basically a transmitter and receiver. So it just sends and receives a frequency. Now that's not actually a drone. It could be part of a drone, or it can be used with other racing drones as well. But that was the first product by DJI in their FCC filing. Now the other two products that they showed were a camera and two antennas. Now usually with racing drones, you don't buy the racing drone by itself. You build it with off-the-shelf parts, or you assemble it together. You might buy certain components and then you have to build it yourself. So you could take a camera here and then you could take other parts here and then put them together. So having these different parts, DJI could sell their camera, they could sell their antennas, and they could sell the air unit, and people could buy those individually and then build their own racing drone. So keep that in mind that we haven't yet seen a racing drone. Perhaps DJI is keeping that a secret. So DJI is also going to make racing goggles and a racing remote controller. Now, everything but a racing drone, but people in the racing drone industry usually can take different parts and make it work. The big question I have, which I'm going to talk about later in this video, is the latency and the frequency of the actual transmitter, the air unit. Is it fast enough? It's got to be faster than OcuSync 2.0 and all the other DJI drones, because otherwise you won't be able to race with it. I'll talk about that later, but first let's get into these other products. So the goggles are going to be something like Fat Shark, because Fat Shark is the industry leader for racing drone goggles. And then the remote controller is going to be about the size of a P4 Pro controller, Phantom 4 Pro controller, nice and big. And that's pretty typical for a racing drone rather than a consumer drone, because you need that big controller to do all types of drone movements, such as, pitch, roll, throttle, yaw. You need all those different components to race drones. I myself am not an FPV drone racer, but I have a lot of friends that do it. I've hung out with them while they've raced and they tell me all these things. So I have some knowledge of it. I'm not an expert by any means. If you are, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your input. So DJI made racing drone goggles before. It didn't really catch on. I think the field of view wasn't very good. They also were kind of too big. I think people didn't want to carry around those big goggles. So I think the size, field of view really hurt them. But these new goggles will be similar size to Fat Shark, and I imagine similar functionality to Fat Shark. So people in the racing drone industry will feel comfortable wearing them, I imagine. Sort of like when DJI came out with the Osmo Action, it had a lot of similar features to the GoPro. So it was new into the action camera market, but it made a product that was so similar to the GoPro that people felt comfortable using it. I think DJI is going to do the same thing with these racing drone components or products. We still don't know, like I said, if it's going to be a full racing drone. It could be, but maybe DJI wants to keep that a secret until its launch date. Now my feeling is if DJI releases a drone, a racing drone, FPV racing drone, first person view racing drone, it's gonna have a lot of challenges that it hasn't had with a consumer drone, because racing drones are built from different parts and a lot of people carry those parts with them, or they have extra drones that they build. So when they crash them, they usually have 5 or 6 other drones with them when they're in a competition or racing, so you can just get another drone and keep racing. Or if you're just doing it for fun with your friends or whatever, you can just have another drone. So I don't know how DJI would do that in terms of being able to have that drone built for the crashes and then having parts. Is it going to sell a bunch of parts? And then it usually has something called DJI Care Refresh, or just insurance for its drones. So how would it deal with that? Or is there just no insurance at all? Those are all questions I still have about DJI entering the drone racing market. And one more question I had is, where can you fly these drones? There are limitations for where you can fly a consumer drone. Is it going to have the same places, same locations that you're able to fly these racing drones, because obviously they go much faster. They can fly between things, they're smaller, and can do all these different moves, which for people who aren't really skilled and may buy these because it's DJI, may cause more accidents. And again, I'm just speculating. I don't know for sure if that's a fact, but it's just one question I had in terms of, if DJI releases a racing drone, are a lot of people gonna buy a racing drone and try to do, is it gonna sort of catch on and go viral where everyone has racing drones and trying to do these cool moves, and they don't know how to do them, and they're crashing their drones in places where there are people and cars and stuff like that. I don't know. Those questions still have to be answered. Now let's talk about the Air unit and DJI if it decides to build an actual racing drone. Now this transmitter receiver, this Air unit, has to have something, like I said before, other than OcuSync because of the latency of flying. Okay, when you're flying your drone, a consumer drone, it flies 40 or 45 miles an hour, top speed maybe 50 miles an hour. You can have a little bit of latency. It's so minute, the eye can barely see it. It's milliseconds. 10 milliseconds for a racing drone is like forever. It's a huge amount of time. Okay, so the latency has to be virtually nil or virtually nothing when you're racing a drone, because you want to see exactly what the drone is seeing in real time, so you can do all these cool moves and obstacle courses and not crash your drone, especially when you're flying close to 100 miles an hour or around 100 miles an hour. If there's any delay in time and you're doing these crazy moves, you're gonna crash. So the latency is a huge factor. I imagine DJI is gonna come out with something other than OcuSync, or like an updated version of OcuSync. If they don't, I'm not sure. I think it will be a flop. I think this could be like the racing drone goggles, where it was a good idea but didn't really catch on. So I imagine DJI learned from their mistakes and learned and did some investigation and research into the racing drone market, and they obviously know this. So the latency, I imagine, would be competitive with everything else that's out there. So what that frequency will be called, other than OcuSync, I don't know. They had Lightbridge, they had OcuSync. What are they gonna call this one? I don't know. That's all I got for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you are into DJI drones and learning how to fly your drone better, safer, please subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up. I'm Brett Garamello with BrettGaramello.com. Drones for real.